supporting you in your dog parenting journey. The Dynamic Dog Owner with Debbie Potter. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Dynamic Dog Owner. This week we are joined by a guest, Mark Walden from Agria Insurance. Hello Mark and welcome.
Good morning, Debbie, and thank you for having me on.
Pleasure. So first of all, obviously, do you want to tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do for Agria, so that they know a little bit about you and your background, and then we'll get cracking.
Yeah, so I'm the partnership manager Agria Pet Insurance. My role involves working with a variety of type of organizations, from small dog training clubs to major pharmaceutical companies, and my role is specifically looking into partnership opportunities that both mutually benefit us as a pet insurer and the organization. And so I get to meet all types of people, all types of organizations, and there is a type of partnership to fit every type of organization. And I do have a little side project or a side passion, which is assistance dogs. So we insure the majority of AD UK Assistance Dogs UK Assistance Dogs now in the UK, which we're absolutely proud of, and it's been a privilege working with these charities. So yep, that's my role in a nutshell. And I suppose just talking about Agria, we're actually the oldest pet insurer in the world. We started pet insurance way back in 1890, and it started off in Sweden, and since then it's sort of expanded within Scandinavia. We came into the UK about 2009, and since then we've expanded across the UK, but now we're operating across mainland Europe. So we've just opened up fairly recently in Germany. We also operate in France, Republic of Ireland, and that's going to grow as more and more people need pet insurance.
I'm quite fascinated. 1890, that's quite early for pet insurance specifically, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It started off as, oh sorry, my laptop battery is just about to die.
Oh, don't worry, mine always does that. Mid podcast, you can tell it always does.
I know. Sorry, it's all fixed now. Yeah, so it started insuring horses, and in Sweden it's set up as a cooperative type organization. So all various landowners and farms sort of all invested in each other and covered their risks. And then, you know, during the early 1900s, when pet ownership became much more mainstream, as not just as working animals but as companion animals, then we started it grew on from that. So it started almost insuring like farm animals, horses, equine, to companion animals who are the dominant. I mean, they've overtaken from a commercial angle how we keep animals and look after them.
Amazing. So Agria specialise particularly in animals, dogs, nothing else.
Yeah, so we're a specialist insurer, so we don't do any other type of insurance. So I wouldn't be able to help you with your house insurance, Debbie, I'm afraid. But yeah, so we do insure all types of animals. In the UK, we do equine, dog, cat, and rabbit, and yeah, so it's a growing industry, a fascinating one. Lots of challenges ahead. You probably have seen yourself. There's lots of developments and challenges within the veterinary world, and naturally that does impact us quite directly. So you know we're keeping a close eye on it and working with a variety of organisations to ensure that pet insurance is sustainable. You probably have seen and had comments. I see it every day on social media that the rising cost of vet bills and insurance naturally follows behind that.
Sure.
So yeah, it's a very fast-paced world. Lots of changes and developments, but also there's lots of innovations, which is really interesting as well, which hopefully impact pet owners in the future.
Okay, brilliant. So what's the benefit? Obviously, being a specific dog or pet insurance rather than doing, a bit of everything and anything. Why does that make obviously Agria be a more sort of almost like top for everyone to look up to? What are the benefits from going to you as a specialist rather than anyone else for your pet insurance?
Well, I think it's always it's quite a technical product, pet insurance, and unfortunately, you do have to look into the terms and conditions. Um, there's quite a saturated market in the UK, so there's lots of pet insurers out there, and you can get, if you had a 3-year-old Labrador, you can get premiums from £15 up to £150 a month. And a lot of pet owners are like, well, where's that magic point? Because obviously there's if it's very cheap, there's often a reason behind it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of insurers, what they do is they give you a very attractive price, but as a consequence, they really restrict terms and conditions. So typical things you may find is we won't cover you for working jobs, or
Mhm.
we won't cover breed specific health conditions, which for Labradors it may be arthritic problems, or if it's a pug, you're looking at brachycephalic issues that they won't cover, and it really stings a lot of people.
Most
That
people don't sit and read the terms and conditions from top to bottom.
it
You just
is, yeah,
that's
it's it's
what you
it's
need,
always a
tick
problem,
box.
and I think more and more people use price comparison websites,
Mhm.
and I always say to people, it's exactly as the name suggests. They compare prices, but not necessarily policies, and that's why we encourage people to look at even our reviews, customer feedback, and really look into what the process is like, because with pet insurance and any other type of insurance for that matter, you don't know how good it is until you need to use it. And for so many pet owners, I suppose what makes pet insurance so different is that in the vast majority of cases where you have to make a pet insurance claim, it's a very stressful time for a lot of pet
Mm.
owners, because there's so much uncertainty with the finances, but more importantly, is my pet, or is my dog, or is my cat going to make through it, depending on what that condition is. So what we do is we focus on the customer journey through a claim. So our average claims turnaround period is between 3 and 5 days, which is industry leading. Whereas,
That's very
you know,
quick.
yeah, yeah. So my background, I used to be a broker, and I used to deal with car and home insurance, and it was very normal to see claims outstanding for 6, 12 months plus.
Mhm.
But we know we're not insuring a household item here. We're insuring, in most cases, members of the family. And so our focus is to ensure that claims get settled quickly. And we give that owner peace of mind, which is the whole concept of pet insurance.
And as you know, I think that's quite rare because people are used to insurance claims taking such a long time. And if your pet is, at the vet needing surgery or what have you, whatever's wrong with them, you want to know that it's going to be paid and sorted pretty damn quick to keep everything flowing and make sure they're being cared for.
Exactly. And I think yeah, one of the things that we do, and other pet insurers for that matter, in all fairness, do is they give the option to pay vets directly. Because
Mm.
we don't, most of us don't have, 4, 5, 6,000 pounds just lying around in our bank account. So again, it's not just peace of mind for the pet, but it's peace of mind for the owner. And I think transparency is quite key to that. You'll see, you can speak to vet practices all across the UK, and they'll some vet practices do accept payments from the pet insurance directly to them. Some
Mm.
don't, because some are quite some are quite they've got a bad reputation of paying vets, and sometimes vet practices can wait weeks, if not months, for a claim to be paid. So yeah, it's all about the journey of a claim, which can be a very stressful time. Um, but yeah, I think that's the core of what we do, is just making that as seamless as possible. But I appreciate as well, that does come at a price. So it's all about finding that balance between affordability
Mhm.
and also comprehensive policy. Um, so it's always a battle that we have every day at Agria.
I can imagine because generally everyone wants a bargain, don't they? Nobody wants to be paying a lot of money for something, especially you've always got that thing with insurance of, do I ever need it? Will I ever need it? And you just don't know, do you? And I think for that what if situation, a lot of people want the cheapest monthly premium, but with
Yeah.
the maximum cover. But you don't want to spend the top one if you're never going to use it. But you just can't look into the future.
No, and it's we get it all the time. We get people that say, well, I don't have pet insurance. I've got a credit card, and I or I've got a savings account that I put money towards. And I think that requires a lot of financial discipline, I
Mm,
suppose. But it's not always practical for people to have that. And you never know, your roof might leak one day, and you might need to spend 3,000-4,000 pounds for that, and that can be gone. And 1 in 4 of our customers claim every year. So
wow.
the claims ratio is extremely high with pet insurance, whereas with a household claim or a car insurance claim, chances are, touch wood, you won't need to claim for those policies. But with pet insurance, it's virtually guaranteed, if you insure the pet through its lifetime, whether it's at end of life or any unforeseen cases during the middle, which can happen.
It surprises me it's that often. I mean, I'm touchwood quite lucky. My dogs generally don't injure themselves. Shouldn't speak too soon. But generally, you know, I've had to claim on insurance over the last however many years, a handful, maybe once or twice. But I know, for example, my colleague is claiming every week because the dog's always injuring itself. And it's just kind of pot luck, isn't it? You never know which one you're going to get. But you mentioned obviously people popping money into a savings account. That is particularly common. I hear a lot of people saying they don't have insurance, but they put it into a pot and then they've got a pot of money. Obviously, there's always going to be that downfall of, as you say, you could spend it. You could be wanting to go on holiday and to go, oh, let's use that. Or you could never have enough because some treatments are expensive. So it's making that educated decision, isn't it, as to, as you say, whether you are strict enough with yourself to keep that in a pot, or you have that security that your insurance, no matter how much it's going to cost, depending on your policy, that you've got it covered. And I suppose for that, I suppose people need to trust the insurance process quite well. And if they've had a bad experience, they may not trust the process if they've gone with maybe a company that isn't as reliable as yourselves, for example.
Yeah, it's that's why things like online reviews are specifically important to us, because it's the first place that people go. I mean, we know that word of mouth is the most effective way of marketing, that organic way of putting people in the right direction. But yeah, it's you just never know. You could have. I mean, I've got a beagle at home, and he's insured with Agria. And he has been insured for the last 6 years. I've only had to make one claim for his teeth, his dental, but no, he's been very lucky. But could have an unlucky dog like your collie that can require frequent claims. If you've got a dog with diabetes, for example,
Mm,
the medication for that is extremely expensive, and it's always these sort of, you have to weigh these things out, and um, if you've got a dog on diabetes, the payments that will pay out for that treatment will be a lot more than your monthly premiums.
mm,
So it's all about risk at the end of the day, and I suppose it's knowing that whatever you do and wherever you go, and you've got that peace of mind. You just never know. We get claims every day from people, going on holiday in Cornwall and their dog just slips on a rock, and I mean that could be thousands. And heaven forbid if it ever happens on a bank holiday or a weekend. I mean
Extra
it's
cost,
just
yeah.
yeah, and so it's all these things to take into account. Not that we want to, give run it based on fear, because it shouldn't be about that. It's all about positive messaging, and it's all about responsible ownership, and we feel that pet insurance is a key component of that.
Definitely it is, because nobody wants to be in a situation where their pet needs treatment and they can't afford it. That would be awful. So, as you say, it's that security, isn't it, of knowing that if the worst happens, you can pay for anything you need because your insurance is going to cover it.
That's right. Well, we see it as part of a wider circle. Just to give you an idea, we work with over 500 rehoming organisations in the UK. So what they do is, with the dogs and cats they rehome, they provide 5 weeks free insurance to new owners who, for the majority of them, it will be their first ever experience of having pet insurance. But we see with them, it's dogs and cats being, abandoned, given into rescue, because the costs are going up, and we're quite concerned actually with what's going on in the veterinary market. There's lots of I think I don't come across at least one story every week on the news relating to vet bills, and even everyday things like feeding, just general
It all goes
costs.
up. Yeah.
It does, yeah. I mean, gosh, I mean, I bought I buy sort of big quantities of dog food, and I'm thinking, gosh, it's almost as much as feeding us.
Mm.
But it's such yeah. So it's we understand that the concerns a lot of pet owners face, and especially nowadays with a cost of living and other pressures that a lot of families are getting, and we're seeing that impacting rehoming rates. Rescues are full again, and they are struggling to keep up of that sort of that churn rate to ensure that they can rehome the pets to the right people, but have space for ones that are coming in. It's I really feel for rehoming organizations, because it's a very challenging environment for them at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. Because as you say, it's expensive to keep a pet on a day-to-day basis, let alone when anything is needed. And I
Mm.
presume that's why, obviously, a lot of people would say, "Oh, my pet insurance has gone up again every year. The premium rises." But again, I presume, just getting it out there, that is directly linked to, costs of living, vet increases in pricing, medicine, all of those things. If a dog is unwell and needs a claim, it's going to cost more, and that's obviously why the premiums increase each year.
Yeah, we look at our premiums at least once a year, and yeah, we take into account what's going on with the usual stuff, so inflation, um, claims payout per region. One thing we don't do, which I don't think we shout out enough about, to be honest, is we don't put your premiums up directly from claiming on your policy. So
Okay.
you'd expect to see that on your house or car insurance, but the reason we don't do that is because we don't want to discourage people from taking their pets to the vets if they've got any concerns. We've got other initiatives as well, like free 24/7 Agria vet guide, which is a video phone service to speak to a vet or vet nurse. And Yeah, so there's all these things that we try and do to alleviate that the claims payout, which directly impacts our premiums.
Mm.
We've only got three rating factors. We like to keep things as simple as possible. So they are breed, age, and location. Oh,
Okay.
one more, sex is is another factor, but not a massive factor, to be honest. But so, you know, you're looking at breeds. So you a lovely Jack Russell would be a lot more affordable from an insurance premium rise than a pug, for example, or a mastiff.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then you've got we do charge on rating areas. Again, it's not a massive factor, but we take into account the operational costs of vet practices in various areas across the UK. So you can imagine costs in areas like London would be
Mm.
a lot more than Aberdeen or Cornwall. So th those are taken into account as well. And but the main factor is age. Sadly, as pets get older,
They need
um,
more.
they do, yeah. So, but one thing we don't do is put premiums up if you we don't put premiums up if you claim because it I think establishes trust with our policyholders and that's why we've got a really good retention rate. They just stick with us,
Mm.
and we keep any increases as gradual as possible, because we you know last thing we want is to give the owner a shock in the post when they get their renewal premiums in for next year. So we're quite conscious of that.
And I think, as you say, pet insurance is very different to house, car, etc. If you were to claim on your house insurance, your car insurance, policy is going up. If you've never had pet insurance before, you may not be aware that that doesn't happen, particularly with Agria.
Mhm.
And then you'd be like, oh, I can't claim on my insurance. I'll pay it through, I'll pay it myself so that it doesn't affect my policy. So it's, as you say, a thing you should probably shout about because most people wouldn't be aware. And it means you are likely to claim because it's not going to affect that future policy.
Yeah, it's a totally different messaging I find personally because when I've sold car and house insurance, people see it as an absolute necessity. You know, you buy a car, first thing you do is you get insurance, and likewise, if you get a mortgage or you move into a new house, you sort the insurance out, and people don't necessarily think about that with their pets. And just to give you a statistic, we're looking at about 30 to 32% of dogs are insured in the UK.
As low as that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Whereas in Sweden, it's just touching on 90%. So I mean that's the difference is
It's
massive.
vast, yes.
Yeah,
Gosh.
so I always try and sort of tap into why is that? Is the messaging different or is the concept of dog ownership different? I think it's a combination of all these factors, and of course it's been around in Sweden a lot longer than it has in the UK. I think it really started to kick off in the late 80s and 90s in the UK.
Mm.
But it's a growing market, certainly for mainland Europe. The UK is really, um, heading that up. In although we're still 30%, it's much lower in countries like Germany and France, for
Okay.
example. So, but we'll see. I mean, things happen, and I think with vet fees and they're just getting so advanced nowadays with specialist treatment and various other things and we're also very much more conscious about our pets' needs and requirements nowadays. So
Absolutely.
um so interesting times ahead.
I'm very surprised it's only 30% or 32%. That's incredible.
Mhm.
But as you say, interesting, it did kind of rise, as you say, around the 90s. I remember growing up, our first few dogs never insured when I was little. And then it was only our sort of third family dog that we decided to get insured. And that was probably around sort of late 90s ish. Other than that, never had a pet insured. It's interesting, isn't it, that how it's changed? Very interesting.
Absolutely.
So, is there any sort of incentives or initiatives to try and increase that number?
Yes, I mean, I think public awareness is a key thing, um, and just because a lot of pet owners are, I mean, especially nowadays, our first time pet owners, it was really fueled by the pandemic and
Yes.
lockdown, and even nowadays, you're getting more and more people working from home as we
Mhm.
are today, and and they've got that ability to have pets at home. Whereas, if you're working 5 days in the office a week, it just wouldn't be practical. So I think education is a key thing, and also working with technology to make things as easy as possible. So like our Agria vet guide, for example, which is I mean a brilliant tool to have. We get people using it in the middle of the field in remote places, when their dog has stepped on, got an injury, or it's acting a bit odd, and they just want to speak to a vet. And I think it's all of these things, just making it at the forefront of people's minds, because when someone gets a new pet, whether it's a puppy or rehoming a dog, the first thing they do is, quite often they go to a pet shop and buy hundreds and hundreds of pounds of stuff and beds and, you
Yeah,
know,
everything you could possibly need or not.
yeah, and half the stuff the dogs will probably not use. But
Mhm.
it's interesting, the idea of getting pet insurance is not always at the forefront of people's minds. And I think a lot of people, there's a lot that we can do as an industry to change that perception. It doesn't help that there's a lot of people that have had negative experience with pet insurance, and
And
quite
that definitely
often,
puts people off.
yeah. So quite often, I mean, when I speak to people at various events, and they've had a negative experience, it's because they've declined a claim because of those, they've cut their terms and conditions, or they were, people thought they were covered for something, and in the end they weren't. And yeah, it's because there's some good insurers, but equally there's a lot of bad insurers out there. And um, I think the industry needs to make it more simple, more easier
Yeah,
to understand, but also descriptive. So um, you can look at your policy and have confidence knowing that you're covered for the things that you want to do with your dog. Um, and I think it's also important for people to scrutinize their pet insurers on the phone, or via email, or however they speak to the pet insurers, to ensure, okay, I've got my dog, but I like to take him to the office, for example, to my work, or I like to take my dog to do various activities like agility, or maybe I like to show my dog. Am I covered for these things? So I think definitely worth asking your insurers that, to ensure that you've got that peace of mind, knowing if you do these activities that you are properly covered.
absolutely. And I suppose that's where it comes on to all the different types of policies. You've got lifetime policies, you've got per conditions, you've got accident only, and people just go, what does all that mean? Because it's
Yeah,
quite overwhelming. It's not spelt out and it's not clear enough for people to understand what they're actually covered for and what they're not covered for. Because it's all technical terms, and I presume most people just then look at price.
that's right. Yeah, it's yeah, you get some really cheap policies out there that may be accident only, so they won't cover you for things like illnesses, and
Mm.
which, arguably ours, they're the most expensive type of claims. But yeah, we only do lifetime for a very good reason, because uh, when I came into pet insurance, knowing very little, or have experiencing very little of it, I just assumed that they would be fully comprehensive lifetime policies, but it's not the case. The good thing is more and more pet insurers are doing lifetime policies, so if your dog has a condition whilst they're on cover, then that will be covered year on year on year on year, um, which is how pet insurance should be done.
Mm.
So you've got these per condition, or accident only policies, and people think they're getting a good deal. And then when it comes to claiming, they have to fork out, whilst paying potentially years into a policy that they're not getting what they're expecting.
And would you say the premium price is kind of like a good indicator, or is it not? Because obviously a lot of people want that cheap bargain. Is the
Yeah,
price the thing that kind of says it's a good policy or it's a naff one? Or
well,
does it vary?
Yeah, I know certainly in the insurance world, I mean the regulators are really clamping down on this type of behavior where you get insurers offering you for the first year a really good price. And they do what we call in the industry a loss leader. So you think you're getting a fantastic price and you know you may be getting a good policy to expect year two to be significantly more. And what they do is they trap you into sort of auto renewing your policy, and expecting you not to question it or come read through your paperwork. And the regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, really clamping down on that sort of practice because I mean, on the offset, we've never done anything like that, nor will we ever intend to. But a lot of insurers do it, and again, it comes down to this break of trust that people have with their insurers. It's not just the claim journey; it's the premiums that they're getting. And there's been some specific insurers in the last couple of years that have been really leading the charge in that getting as much pets on their books, and then subsequent years. It could be because they've gone into pet insurance not understanding the complexities and the high claim rates.
Yeah.
They have to make their money back by putting everyone's premiums up. I mean, we've been doing it for a very long time, and we understand the complexities of that to make it sustainable and manageable. But some insurers do it thinking that it's a quick buck to make.
Yes.
But
Yeah. Understand that.
but they get bitten. We see so many pet insurers that have gone up, and then they've gone bust. So it's a very complex market.
It is, and I think I've been stung a few times. You know, I've had insurance. I think my first ever dog, I had the exact situation where it went cheap the first year, went up, and then I went to claim something. Went, oh no, we don't cover that. And I was like, oh okay, right.
Yeah.
First time I ever wanted to claim, didn't happen. And I mean, I've got three dogs, so insuring all of them becomes an expensive activity.
Mm.
Um, Anything with three dogs is expensive. They're not small, they're big dogs as well. So you've also got that of I want to have all of them insured. I want it a little bit cheaper, but I want the best cover, and that is a challenging thing to balance out, I suppose, isn't it? Of having the good quality insurance times three, in my case, and now all three of them. I mean, they are 7, 5, and 3, and they've been insured their whole life. I've claimed once across all of
Wow.
them. Touch wood. And you think I could need it next year. You never know. I could put my money in a pot, but you've maybe definitely talked me out of that one. That's good. I
Oh,
just think it's such a minefield of knowing which one to pick, what to go for, and how to make sure you're getting the best for the premium you're paying each month.
yeah. I think it's there's a lot of work that needs to be done in getting the right messaging out there. You can imagine that because of the high claim ratios that you'd expect to pay more for your pet insurance as you would on your home insurance, for example.
Mm,
I mean, our minimum premium starts, I think, around about 13 to 15 pounds a month, and then it can go up, and it's but saying that, my dog, who's 8 years old, you know, there's always a balance that people have to make, in terms of what's going to happen in the future. It's a bit like taking your dog to the vets when they reach a certain age. Is it worth it's all these things. I mean, I for a lot of new owners, it's very difficult to educate them on these sort of life lessons with their
absolutely.
pets, and having that right balance. There's no right answer out there. And of course, there's all these other factors taking into account, like affordability. But
Mm,
but yeah, I think we try and communicate to people as clearly as possible. And when we talk about things like excesses and levels of cover and premiums. We give them real life examples of claims that people have given to us, and just so they can weigh these things out. Even breeds are what we would say higher risk, like French bulldogs, for example. We give them claim statistics of French bulldogs in the first few years of their lives. So when they are expecting to pay more than a lovely little Jack Russell, then they've got that informed knowledge, knowing that it's just a shame that that messaging can't go to them when they're at the point where they're thinking of getting a dog, and what breeds do I get, and where do I go, and places like that. But no, we try and arm people as much as they can with the information and knowledge so they can make an informed decision.
Absolutely, that's brilliant. So obviously we're talking about if case being stung. I remember years ago we took out an insurance policy. It was the first insurance policy we had as a family, so I was still at home. We took out a policy for my mum's dog, and it wasn't until about a year later, when the renewal came up, we realised his breed was actually exempt from their terms and conditions, but they'd happily insured him.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. So obviously a lot of policies do have exemptions. Do you cover all pets and every type of pet? So in terms of breed, what they do, is there anyone you don't insure?
So we do have a list of exempted breeds. They're not extensive by any stretch, but even then we're reviewing them quite often. So the dogs that we don't currently insure are ones that are banned under the Dangerous Dogs Act. However, saying that, we've looked into providing exemptions for XL bullies. So if you've got an exempted XL bully, you're able to insure them with us for their vet fees. With third-party liability, they have to go elsewhere. But certainly for vet fees, we're able to provide that cover. There's other breeds that we don't cover, including they're quite unusual breeds. I haven't come across them myself. Like wolf hybrids, which there was a bit of a trend during Game of Thrones and that sort of period of time where they became very popular. But they've got a lot of wild instinct in them
of course,
that's a problem. So I mean, there's no breed that that we don't insure. I mean, we do insure every type of pedigree dog out there. We're updating our breed list all the time to accommodate the new poodle breeds, and the variety you get with them. But yeah, so we, until very recently, we do insure every type of working dog apart from greyhound racing dogs. So the good thing is we just launched a brand new product called service dogs. So as the name suggests, we'll be able to cover every type of working dog that you can think of. So if your dog is a police dog or fire and rescue, search and rescue, army, drug detection, prison dogs, we'll be able to cover those dogs for their vet fees. Even dogs like therapy dogs. And what we found with these dogs in particular, with service dogs, is that they do a bit more interesting jobs, but actually they are so well kept, they are so well trained, and actually it started off with assistance dogs, and we found that they were just wonderful dogs to insure from our perspective, so we branched out, and it's been an absolute privilege to insure dogs of a variety of working backgrounds, and we're going to continue that further.
Amazing.
So yeah,
I think that's
really
a really good point to make, because a lot of people take out their insurance and then don't, again, read the small print and realize that actually their dog's not insured to, for example, if they take them to school with them, the insurance doesn't cover it. Or if you I don't know, whatever you might do with your dog that is classed as, like for example, what you say, taking them to work. If
Yeah.
you're a dog walker, and you take your dog to work, it can invalidate your insurance because are they at work with you or are they a client dog? And there's all those sort of pitfalls and things that come up. We recently had a client who has just started using their dog as a working scent detection dog, and said trying to find insurance, everyone, it wasn't clear on the websites. Every time they had to ring up and they were like, oh no, not sure about that, and there wasn't a definite answer. So obviously the fact that you now insure all dogs, whether they are working or not, is is a good thing to know, I think, to have that reassurance that you've looked into it and you know what you're talking about, and you know that it actually, a working dog isn't just, for example, a police dog. It could be a family pet. And again, I think people don't realize there's a difference in the insurance of family pet insurance versus working insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, even then we've got different types of activities. So you see a lot of police dogs, depending on the job they have to do. A lot of them are kept in kennels, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them are kept with the handlers family. You've got dogs like search and rescue dogs who are specifically trained to find people, whether it's in the countryside or up in mountains.
Generally,
But
they're
those
volunteers as well. They're
exactly.
volunteer people. It's not a job, so to speak. They just do it for fun, and
Exactly. Yeah.
may not
Yeah,
realize they're
and
not insured.
yeah, and we've spoken to so many people in the search and rescue world, and they've had a massive challenge, and I suppose, and they all give me different information. So I've had people say regarding the same insurer, they've said, oh, this insurer will not cover my dog. Sometimes the insurer says we'll cover you for your dog except when you're working or doing that search and rescue work. And then you get some insurers that say, sorry, we're not going to cover you at all. And it confuses people to,
Mm,
so much, and understandably so. And but yeah, you're right. So, search and rescue people, they do it as a voluntary job. And okay, they jump across rivers and over rocks and fences and all that stuff. But again, these dogs are so healthy. They have to be
mm,
healthy because otherwise they won't be able to perform their working roles. So, from our perspective, it was a bit of a no-brainer actually, because and I think some insurers do get a bit nervous when they insure
mm.
things that are a little bit more interesting. We had
Yes.
it in car insurance when electric cars first went out. It wasn't necessarily because electric cars were a greater risk. Of course, we know that's not the case now, but it's that unknown
Yeah.
element that
There's no data to fall back on.
exactly, and the insurer's fallback option would be when we're not going to cover it until we know what's going to happen. So, we're the first insurer that's launched a product specifically like this with service dogs. But I suspect as time goes on, other insurers will not necessarily copy us, but they'll expand their
Yes.
portfolio potentially. But we'll see. It's a changing market, but it's one actually it's the best part of my job actually is speaking to police constabularies, fire and rescue, search and rescue, and everything in between. It's just amazing, these dogs. Sometimes I just look at them and I think, God, we just don't deserve these
We
these
underestimate what
amazing.
they're capable of, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. There was one police handler that said to me once, this was at Crufts a few years ago. He said to me, "There's the only limitation with dogs' ability to train is your imagination, and you can think of there was this one particular dog that didn't quite cut the mark to be a drug detection dog, just wasn't able to detect the drugs. But for somehow, I don't know how this happened, but this dog had this remarkable ability to detect certain types of fungus,
Oh
and it
wow.
was eventually employed by it's either National Trust or English Heritage to detect early signs of mold in wooden beams. So
Oh wow,
this
that's
dog
incredible.
was repurposed for going into these old buildings and detecting early signs of decay. And you think, God, how does that I mean, I'm not a dog trainer, but I do admire that sort of world when it comes to these sort of working jobs.
It's incredible what they can do. Absolutely incredible. The dog that we have, who has recently started working with their owner, he is a employed bed bug detection dog. So
Right.
we've
Okay.
done it in class. He came for fun. Said, I think I could use this at work. And we've done some sessions around building the association with bed bugs, and he's now going into hotels and nursing homes detecting bed bugs. So it's incredible what they can do, and so useful for us as a whole. It's fascinating.
Well,
I think we underestimate them.
absolutely. I wouldn't mind taking that conversation outside of the podcast, because when I was creating the activity groups, I did, we did lots of research into it, and I know there's an industry of bed bug detection. I remember our underwriters and our team were like, bed bug detection, like what is that? And you think, you're almost opening up a can of worms, but it's a fascinating world, and really important, as you say, for hotels, um various hospitals, care homes, that sort of thing. It's very important.
There's so many things they're used for, and it's obviously great to know that you then cover all these dogs that are doing important jobs, taking away that grey area for people who think they're insured, aren't insured, or not sure what they're covered for. So amazing new service. That's going to be incredibly beneficial for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just and again, they do such an important job for us, and I think it's the least we can do is providing that cover for them should anything was to happen, and it doesn't give the owners, that sort of worry of do I disclose it, do I not disclose it, and
Exactly.
and where that's the sort of feedback we've been getting, and yeah, it's a very difficult
Especially with
situation.
like your search and rescue dogs who are doing effectively, they're going out search and rescuing, but they could just be on a walk and have exactly the same injury. But
Exactly.
as you say, then people are going, do I, don't I? Do I, don't I? And then it leaves that grey area for people.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, I mean, your dog could go out for a walk and step on a bit of glass. I mean, these risks happen. It's just
Mm,
you're just getting more fresh air out in the mountains and the the moors of the Welsh countryside, perhaps. But it's from our perspective, from what we've seen over the years, there's no greater risk from an injury point of view, as you with everyday dogs. So there are other factors to take into account, but it's yeah, it's been from us, it's been quite an interesting insight.
So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been really interesting to hear and learn more about insurance. I've learned a few things, and I didn't know. I'm amazed by the statistics, and it's really nice to hear a little bit more about what Agria are doing to be the leading pet insurer. So anything else you'd like to sort of leave us with before we say goodbye?
I suppose my last message, other than thanking you for having me on your podcast, is if anyone has any questions to you directly, feel free to pass them on to me. Ask your insurer the important questions that sometimes terms and conditions can't really explain or in massive detail. And if anyone has any concerns that they may be undercovered, then by all means give us a call, and I'm sure we can help.
Amazing. I will pop a link to obviously Agria's website in the show notes. So if anyone is listening and wants a direct link to how to get in touch and get a quote, then that will be on there. But thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and it's lovely to talk a little bit about the topic of insurance and uncover some of those myths that people have. So thank you. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you for listening to The Dynamic Dog Owner with me, Debbie Potter. See you next time.